demonstration. Right here is where that flank, you're standing within 20 yards of where the flank charge, this flank march begins. And we're going to have some other things to say about this. So right here, it is my high privilege to introduce you to some trooper friends of mine. And Todd Kern and I have been friends for at least 50 years. Todd doesn't look that old, but I do. But this is the finest group, in my opinion, of Confederate cavalry living historians today. And I'm going to turn it right now over to Trooper Todd Kern and his mates to take you through a cavalry demonstration. Todd.
Thank you, Buzz. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Grand thing to be here 150 years after the Grand Review. Maybe we'll make a ride down tomorrow also. We are the Valley Light Horse. Usually there's a few more of us, so we could only get a few out today, but what you see is a working section of 4. The American cavalry prior to the Civil War was based on the European model of light cavalry, heavy cavalry, and dragoons. The American Civil War will take those hussars and cuirassiers and combine them all into one in what we think of today as cavalry, equally well suited to fight mounted or fight dismounted on foot, just like infantry. But the main ingredient for any mounted soldier is that horse. One of the maxims of warfare throughout time is mobility. And for the cavalry soldier, that mobility is his horse, his second self. He is going to look after his horse with more welfare than he does himself. This horse may get you out of a tight spot and keep you moving, prevent you from being left behind. In the morning, when you wake up, you're going to water, you're going to feed, you're going to groom, and then you'll take care of yourself. And then mount for drills or moving cross country. In the evening, when you get stopped wherever you go, you're going to dismount, you're going to unsaddle, you're going to cool the horse, you're going to groom the horse, you're going to water the horse, you're going to feed the horse, and then you can take care of yourself, bedding down and eating, or whatever you have to do. The horse always comes first. I can't begin to stress that enough. So essentially, a cavalryman is a mobile stable. He is going to have to carry with him whatever it takes to maintain that horse in the field. At the end of the day, he's not going back to the barn or to the stable or wherever. He's got to maintain that horse. So he's going to carry with him maybe a feed bag for feeding grain when he has it. Very often for the Confederates, they're going to maintain the horses by grazing alone. Anyone that knows horses knows that horses in hard work, grazing alone is hardly enough to keep them in good flesh. He's going to carry a curry comb and a brush to get the dirt and the scuff and the dried salt out of that horse's coat to keep his back fresh so he can continue to move. He's going to carry a hoof pick, clean the hoofs, get the rocks out of the shoes. He might even carry shoes with him because unlike his northern counterparts, the Confederate cavalryman had to bring his horse from home. He had to own that animal and bring it into service. So quite often he knew how to take care of the horse. He knew how to shoe. He knew when to water. He knew when to feed. Now he's going to have to take care of himself as well. So he's a mobile barrack. He's going to carry his personal effects in a valise or saddlebags like these, or maybe just rolled up in his sleeping blanket on the back. He's going to carry something for wet weather, to tie around him or to sleep on the ground, an oilcloth. On this side, he's going to carry a haversack to carry his food for himself. But most importantly, the soldier is a soldier, and his job is to be brought into the face of the enemy. And that's when it comes to the weapon. A long arm, something to fight at foot, just like infantry. And you'll notice these guys behind me have a variety of long arms. Anything from a shotgun brought from home, to a carbine, to a 3-band rifle, muzzle loaders. John Eston Cook, Chief Ordnance Officer for Stewart, says the caliber most used by the Cavalry Division is the .58. The .58 is a muzzle loader. Contrary to their northern counterparts, most of these Southerners are using muzzle loaders on horseback and dismounted. Confederate cavalry always had a bit of a problem getting enough functional, good, long-range, long arms. So it's an ordnance officer's nightmare supplying cartridges for this variety of weapons. He is also going to carry with him the arm most thought of with the cavalry, the saber. Contrary to popular belief, he did not have 2 or 3 pistols strapped to himself and the horse. They were lucky if they had one. There simply was not a supply of manufactured pistols available for them. More often, the Confederate cavalry was mounted infantry than anything. But when they fought mounted, Stewart was a great believer in the saber. Using the horse in mass, they are the shock force. They're going to be thrown in to bust a line, bust a flank, take advantage of a broken line, or fill the gap in their own line. I'm going to have these gentlemen here go out and do a quick demonstration for you tactically. Right? They're going to go through the motion of a mounted skirmish line first. As you can imagine, loading a muzzle loader on horseback is no easy task. But they did something called a castabout. So they would throw it across their lap, load it, bring it back up, cap it, and then they were ready. A mounted skirmish line is used to keep the enemy's head down. If you've got an advance and you're trying to press them, use a mounted skirmish line. If you want them to deploy to face you, use a mounted skirmish line. If you want them to keep off your rear while you're deploying, use a mounted skirmish line. Fire, fall back to the next high ground or the next defensive position, fall back again. Very few horses will be rock steady on firing. Some actually get used to it. One officer during the war said, any firearm delivered from horseback delivers ragged accuracy at best. The most efficient way is as Buford did at Gettysburg. Use your horses, get to the ground you want, dismount, get on the ground and hold it just like the infantry does.
Let's see what a big target these guys make.
The tactics of the day, the manual being taught on both sides primarily was the 1841 Poinsett cavalry tactics. It calls for a double rank formation, just like infantry battle line, a double rank formation, but the working functional group in cavalry in all that formation is a set of 4. When they dismount to fight on foot, they will tie the reins, 1 ties to 2, 2 ties to 3, 3 hands the reins to number 4, and number 4 holds that third horse here. Now then they can go out and fight on foot just like infantry. The problem with this is they weaken their effective force on the ground by 25%. So very often they would tie more than 3 horses together. Or they would tie them in a belt of woods like that and go out.
Stewart believed that the power of cavalry, the power of cavalry was in a mass cavalry charge at the point of a saber. He believed that. And it was his preference never to fight dismounted unless he had to. Unless he had to.
You can see the amount of time it takes for them to reload. A good soldier with a muzzle loader should be able to load 3 rounds in a minute. Now that's a bit of a disadvantage when the Federals are using Sharps and Burnsides, breech loaders, quicker acting, quicker loading, and then for the second half of the war, the Spencer repeater, the laser-guided bomb of the Civil War. And the gun they could load on Sunday and shoot all week because it held 7 rounds. The only advantage these guys have, the Confederates had, using the muzzle loader, especially something like the Enfield rifle, was accuracy at distance. Firepower probably wasn't as great, but their accuracy was better. Yeah.
Typically, did the horse holders stay mounted or dismounted?
Mounted. Because we're doing this on a very small, confined area right now so you can see it. Typically, say we would have ridden to that tree line, dismounted there, put the men into that tree line, and the horse holders would have brought the horses back and over the ridge line here where they were safe. And if they're going to remount, either the men come to them or the horses would come to them. So you move that string of horses as needed. Last thing we're going to do is we'll bring up a line and I'll show you a charge.
You're looking at 5 cavalry troopers. 5 cavalry troopers. Keep in mind that Pleasanton had 8,700 cavalry troopers. Jeb Stuart had 9,500. Can you imagine what that looked like? What that sounded like? Absolutely unbelievable. The sound of horses going at each other in a full charge. Shooting. Horses raising back. Horses going down. Horses were targets. They were legitimate targets of war. Being shot constantly.
We just saw, again, 4 men in a skirmish line. As Bud said, think of thousands of dismounted skirmishers lined up. What's the power of a skirmish line? It breaks up that solid fist. If you're an infantry brigade in line of attack, you've got to split out to confront them. It breaks you up. It forces you to deploy from column into line. That's the power of that small skirmish line. We're just seeing a snippet of it. Imagine that array across these hills that we've been driving over and walking over.
Just to follow up on what Bud was saying, at the Third Battle of Winchester in September of 1864, there was a 5-brigade front charge, mounted charge by Union cavalry. The line of battle was 2.5 miles long, if you can imagine that. And when these guys put spurs to horse, and when they went from the gallop to the charge, they say the earth shook like an earthquake. So you can imagine being George Patton's infantry and seeing that coming bearing down on you.
We're going to see a charge here in just a second.
do.
That's right. You gotta get the idea of a lot of forces coming at you. It makes you want to move, especially if you're on the ground.
Okay, anybody got any questions for Todd or any of his troopers here with the Valley Light Horse? Right here.
Come out and check things out if you want. Check out the different kinds of saddles. Jennifer saddles, Confederate saddles, civilian saddles. We use a variety of stuff just like they did.
I just want to make the comment, folks. 150 years after the Battle of Brandy Station, we've got cavalry again on this great cavalry battlefield, and we thank you guys incredibly for sharing this with us. Question right here.
How many horses were lost during the 4 years of the war? Is there any?
Well, there's a paper actually that's written on that, and the figure, remember?
Million and a half.
Yeah.
Estimate. Who knows?
Yeah, both sides. About 1.5 million. That's mules and horses. There was a great shortage of horses right after the war.
So that's 2 horses to every soldier.
About, yeah.
Well, remember, horses just aren't for cavalry. They're for pulling the wagons.
Mules would have been lost pulling wagons. Artillery pieces. Lots of horses here were disabled, having a leg taken off, or being disemboweled, or right here, right on this hill.
How many rounds of carry usually on a...
The question was, how many rounds do you carry?
Long arm ammunition? That's usually carry, if you had a revolver, you know, typically you carry 6 in the weapon and maybe another pack of 10 or 12.
40
And on your carbine, depended again what kind of weapon you had. If you had a 58, you probably carried 40.
Return. Saber. Okay. That. Prepare to dismount. 1s and 3s forward. Dismount. Form rank. Questions? Anything else? Yeah, man over here.
What are the best horses for like cavalry? Best horses for cavalry.
He's asking, what are the best horses for cavalry?
What is the best horse for cavalry?
Yes.
It ended up being just the mongrels, the crossbred, you know, little working horse. Today we like to use a lot of quarter horses, but the blooded horses of the day ended up being, some of them that is, they, you know, the son may go away with the best horse the family has, and he fretted and worried and just wore himself to death. It ended up being the little plug plow horse that they rode to town was best suited at times.
One more question? Right here. What was the Confederate cavalry owned their own horses?
Yeah,
Opposed to being government issue? What was the reason behind that?
What was the question is, what was the reason for the Confederates bringing their own horses as
It wasn't
opposed to
the
having
Confederate
government issue?
government's issue to begin with, so it's an all volunteer thing.
He's never thought about issuing them? Or?
Like much at the beginning of the war, companies were raised in a locality, cavalry, infantry. They brought what they had. They outfitted themselves and went off to war, and it took them, the Confederate government, a year to start realizing, hey, we need to start outfitting guys. But they stuck with the policy of paying for the horse only when he was killed in action, not when he died from disease or anything else. By the fall of '62, there was a great shortage of horses in the South. And then Lee had the tough decision to make that do you take the farmer's plow horse to keep your army mobile, but then the farmer doesn't have the horse to plant food for your army. It's a catch-22.
You also have, at the first part of the war, my horse gets wounded, I own my horse. Now what do I do with my horse? Because I got to keep going. I got to have another horse. So what do I do with this horse that's wounded? I got to take him home or take him somewhere. So I got to leave the ranks and do something with him. So the Confederate government actually does do what the federal government did and set up a hospital for horses to where these horses could be transported. Someone could take care of them to keep the soldiers in the field still and have better care for them. So then you could go back and get your horse, and your horse would be shipped back to you once he was fit.
Okay, let me turn this back over to Bud.
Okay, thanks again, and be around here for a while if you would, if you can.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're going to pick up, let me very quickly take you to where we are now in the battle. We've taken some of this chronologically out of order because we've already fought over there with Rooney Lee, John Buford. But now, let's take you back to 6 o'clock in the morning, 6:30 in the morning.